and I was so ill for a whole year. I was like in bed, I wasn't able to walk, I wasn't able to pretty much move. I had to be cared for by my mother like 24 hours a day. I was like, so what is all this Islam? Go on, tell me about it. Some man, I remember this, astaghfirullah, some man floating on a cloud. I had a dream that I was in a masjid. I was walking down a street, and then I went into this masjid and I saw loads of people dressed in white, like bowed down. Obviously in the dream I didn't really know. I knew that that Muslims prayed, but I didn't really know what it was all about. And so I did indeed go to the masjid, and when I got in there, it was like the dream, the street and everything. When I got in them, I was like, I've been here before. I really struggled to say I want to be a Muslim. I just let it all go. I stopped talking to my Muslim friends. I just had nothing to do with Islam whatsoever. I just laid in bed that one night and said, I'm really sorry, Allah. Just help me to come back to the deen. Just do what you need to do to get me back, because I can't live like this.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. I'm Aisha Rosalie. Welcome back to the Straight Path podcast. I'm with my friend Saira.
Hi, nice to see you.
How I always like to start the videos, I like to talk about childhood.
Yeah.
Anything in your childhood that was kind of significant that you feel like you brought with you in your adult life that could have affected your conversion. That's a good place to start, because I feel like every single convert story starts from childhood, whether people realise it or not.
Yeah, so I'm born and bred in the good old UK, and I live in Leicester, and I've always lived in Leicester, born and bred, apart from a very short period that I lived in London. And I kind of, it's that kind of typical British family, like me, my brothers and my mum and dad, they've been together like forever. And there's been absolutely no religious influence in my life as a child. My mum and dad are both kind of almost non-believers, although my mum always says she believes that there's something. She's never really been kind of a Christian or a Catholic, or there's never been like a Bible in our house or anything like that. Even to today, my dad just won't even entertain a conversation about religion. And my brother's the same. He just, he's very like, when we die, we're dead, and that's it. So that's kind of how I was brought up. We didn't go to church. We didn't like participate in any kind of religious festivals really, other than Christmas, if you want to call that a religious festival, although that's probably up for debate. But yeah, so no religious influence at all. And my childhood was, I suppose, I don't want to say lonely, because I had lots of friends and I was always really popular at school, and but I was pretty much an only child because my brothers were gone. They were a lot older, and it was just kind of me. And I did a lot of reading and a lot of kind of being on my own, like inventing my own games and just doing my own things really.
What were you like at school?
Oh gosh, I was unruly. I never fitted into a system like at all. I could just never be told what to do. I could never be kind of subject to anyone giving me commands. I just really struggled with that. I think because at home, my father was always very strict. Not excessively, but he was very strict. And so I suppose when I was at school, that was like my freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. So yeah, I behaved myself and I did okay, but I could have done way better if I just listened a bit more. But I was just a little bit unruly and a bit kind of like, I'll do it my way.
So you feel like you didn't really pay attention in lesson and you kind of skived a little bit at school?
Oh yeah, I was always at the bike shed. As I got older, I was always behind the bike shed, like having a cigarette or doing things that you're not supposed to do, skiving off school, hanging out with my friends. And
where do you think that came from? Do you feel like it was the people you were mixing with at school? Do you feel like you were like that before you started going to school?
I think because I spent a lot of time on my own, being at school was like a release for me. And even as I got older and the friends that I would meet, I'd go out till really late o'clock at night, and my mum and dad would be like fuming about it. And it was kind of like I was almost going against anything that they'd kind of told me not to do. I was like, right, it's the rebel stage now, do what I want. But unfortunately, when I was 14, I got a really, really bad bout of glandular fever, which left me with a long-term illness called fibromyalgia, which I still have now. And my kind of life really just declined into this really hard space for me, because when you're 14, you're kind of learning and developing, you're getting your own real like personality, and you're thinking about like what you want to do at college, you know, like all of these things. It's a really big developmental age for you, and I was so ill for a whole year. I was like in bed, I wasn't able to walk, I wasn't able to pretty much move. I had to be cared for by my mother like 24 hours a day. So that gives you a lot of time to think.
Wow,
So,
when
yeah.
you were going through that horrible sort of tribulation, did you ever, as a kid, turn to God? Did you ever, like, I don't know, feel really awful, feel like things were just not getting better, and sort of look up to the sky and be like, please help me, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, in layman's terms, yes. I would lay there and I'd just be like, please, like, just make this better for me. Like, so there'd be times when my whole side of my face would be completely numb and I wouldn't be able to feel it. And I would literally put my hand on it and be like, please, like, somebody help me. Like, if there's a God or whatever this power is, please, like, help me to get better. Please, like, do something, you know. So I've always been God conscious, I think, from a very young age, even though I was a bit of a rebel like we are, you know, and I was a bit of a kind of like, I could be defiant sometimes. I always had a really good heart and a good soul, I believe, and I was always very aware that, even like I said, from a young age, that there was more to life than this. So yes, I was calling upon something which I thought was probably the universe, or, you know, some angel in the sky, you know, not necessarily calling directly to God, but obviously God knows when we call him, you know, so it's...
You're calling to a power that had influence over what happened in your life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I did keep on asking, and I did keep on asking, you know, and eventually I did get better. I did get well. You know, alhamdulillah, it's been a really tough journey for me. But yeah, I did recover.
Wow, do you feel like that matured you when you were quite young?
Yeah, I think I was always very mature for my age anyway. I've seen a lot in my childhood, different things that make you grow up. And going through a really serious illness at such a pinnacle time in my life was, yeah, like I said, you have a lot of time to think about things, and it does mature you, because you then realize that actually I could maybe die tomorrow. So what are we living for? And that's kind of when the questions start to come into your mind. So what am I going to do? Am I ever going to recover? Am I always going to be like this? I used to say to, well, I know God now, will I ever get better? Will I ever be well again? Will I ever go outside again? Because I didn't go outside for nearly a year. So yeah, it was really tough, really, really tough.
Do you remember going outside for the first?
Yes, yes. I had the image actually as I said it. I came onto the front garden and I walked down to the gate, and it was like, wow. I actually felt it was surreal. Like everything was just really bright, and everything just looked so fresh, and it's really strange. It's like when you hear the captives being underground for like loads of time, and then they come out and it's like they almost can't see. It was kind of felt like that. It was just like, wow. I'm outside, I'm breathing, but I used to get really bad panic attacks for some time, which I think is quite normal because I'd been inside for so long.
Wow. Did you turn to religion after that?
No, I got better and I just kind of lived my life. I didn't really ever think about it. I just made my recovery journey, and then, you know, went to college, went to uni, and went to work. And I think through all of my life, even up until I became a Muslim, I have always had the awareness, and I have always in situations asked for help. So, like I said, the God consciousness has always been there. So I always knew, whereas I've never heard my mum and dad call on anyone or anything for help. Like, oh God, help me, nothing. So yeah.
So there was no like bout of Christianity or anything that came after that?
No.
Have you ever been in a church before?
I've been in a church a few times actually with friends, and you know, they would go to mass and things like that at Christmas, and but I could never get the connection, because I just couldn't understand what they were talking about. It made no sense to me. So I never went in there and felt like, oh, this is my heart, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, No, never. I mean, I've been in a synagogue. I've been in loads of different religious places because I've got a really diverse set of friends, and I think Leicester is really diverse anyway.
Yeah.
I've been to like Hindu temple. I've been,
Oh, wow.
and but I never ever felt like, wow, this is me.
Yeah.
This is like what I should be doing. Like, no, never, ever.
So when were you first introduced to Islam?
Well, actually, I was first introduced to Islam through a friend of mine at school, in high school. She was Muslim, although I didn't know she was Muslim. She didn't wear hijab. Identifying on looks alone, I didn't know that she was a Muslim. But I remember going to her house, and I went upstairs to use the toilet, and I went into the wrong room, and it was like the bedroom, and there was a Quran. I didn't know it was a Quran, but there was a Quran, and it was like open on this wooden stand, and I was like, ooh, and I kind of went over and had a little look, and I was like, that doesn't look like English, and then that was kind of it. But I thought about it. I thought, what was that book? And I think I even said to her, like, what was that book? And she probably told me it was the Quran. And it's mad because I'm still friends with her now after all these years. We had a long time of not seeing each other when we left school, and now we've reconnected again, which is incredible. But that was the first, I think, what I can remember, time of ever seeing anything to do with Islam. So, yeah, that was my first experience.
Okay. So when were you first introduced in Islam in a way when your journey started, like your revert journey?
So I'd had my first son with my ex-husband, and I'd suffered from postnatal depression. And again, like when I was a child, you have that kind of, what am I doing? Like, what is all this about? Why am I going through all this suffering? Why do I feel this way? There's got to be more to life than this. Is it just having babies and die, and then we're just in the darkness forever? Like, what is this? So I started to question a lot of my life, I was changing my career, like what I wanted to do, what kind of mother I wanted to be, because these are all really like essential things when you have a baby that you're thinking about. What kind of person do I want to be now? I've got someone to look after. And I started kind of looking online a little bit at different religions. Islam was nowhere in it. Absolutely nowhere. There was Buddhism, again Hinduism, there was like all these different religions, and none of it for me made any sense. I couldn't like get with the meditating 20 hours a day with the Buddhism, and I couldn't get with certain, just none of it rung true with me. And but I'd started to ask, if there's something, like secretly at night, if there's something, please just make it clear for me. Please just lead me to it. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? I think I had a big like breakdown where I was like on the floor, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, help me. Somebody help me, kind of thing. And it was that weekend I went into Leicester City Centre and I saw a Dawah store. And I went over because I thought, because I'm quite argumentative. Not even argumentative, but I'm quite... I want to know the answer, and if I don't know it, then I'll wait until I can, I'll keep on trying to seek it. And I went up to this stall, and this gentleman, and he was stood there, and I was like, so what is all this Islam? Go on, tell me about it. Some man, I remember this, astaghfirullah, some man floating on a cloud, making children sick. How can you like even believe it, that there's something, like that there's this all-powerful being that... And he just stood there, and I was like, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, okay, well, sister, would you like me to tell you? And I was like, yeah, okay, you tell me. And the whole time there was a gentleman stood next to him, and he just the whole time was looking down. I was like, see, this is my perfect example of why, I don't particularly like Muslims, because I didn't really like Muslims that much. I mean, I didn't really care too much, but what I knew about Islam and Muslims was all from like the BBC. Apart from my one friend at school, I never knew anything about it. And I was like, this is the problem. Look, he's looking down. He can't even make eye contact with me because he's rude. And he was like, no, he's not making eye contact with you out of respect for you, sister, because he's lowering his gaze. And I was like, well, why does he need to lower his gaze? And then he told me, and I was like, I felt like such an idiot. I just felt so ridiculous. I was like, I felt quite embarrassed, actually. Wow. I was like, oh my gosh, he's actually a nice person. But once it was explained to me, it was fine. Yeah. But yeah, he explained all these things to me, and he gave me a little booklet to take home. And I just like shoved it on the shelf and left it there.
Well, that's actually really interesting when you were talking about how you were kind of like very desperate, and you were like, what is the answer? Like, I can't find the answer. Because there's a really interesting analogy on life, and this is what it felt like for me as a non-Muslim compared to being a Muslim.
Yeah.
As a non-Muslim, I felt like I was, imagine you wake up and you're on a plane and you're sitting in first class, you have all these like amazing facilities around you, you're living this like life of luxury, but you don't know how you got there.
Yeah.
Would you be relaxed? Or would you be running around the plane going, help, like, I don't know why I'm here, how do I get home?
I love that.
And that's exactly what this world is like. Like, if you don't know why you're here, it's very frantic. It's like, why am I here? Help, somebody help me. I don't know what I'm doing. Where am I going? Yeah. It's very frantic. It's like waking up on a plane, even though you've got all these amazing facilities, life is amazing. You don't know how you got there. And it's scary. Yeah. And that's how I felt as a non-Muslim. And it's really interesting when you said about how you were like very desperate, because it is like that. Yeah. You're like, why am I here? Where am I going to go when I die? What's my purpose? Yeah. Why am I doing all of this? Why am I waking up in the morning? Like, you feel frantic.
Yeah. And I think there must have been hundreds of signs, but I just missed them all. But then when I really asked Allah to help me, when I really got down on my knees and was like, please do something, He guided me to that dawah store. I'd never ever seen one in my life. Never seen one in my life. Or maybe I didn't recognize it then. And Allah made it so easy for me. And I took the book and I went home and I was kind of a bit like, I understood a lot of what he said, but I was still like, I don't know whether that's really for me. Yeah. Put the book on the side and then it stayed there for about 6 months before I picked it up again.
What made you pick it up again?
Because again, I was having like a bit of a crisis, and I was like, I thought to myself, if I pick that book up and open it on a page that I can relate to, I'll find out more about Islam. So at this moment, I thought I was testing Allah, you know. So I got the book and I opened it, and the book was, the page was Rights of a Woman in Islam. Oh, wow. And instantly I was like, wow, okay. Looking around like, this is weird. And it went on from there. I do things like, I'd say to Allah, okay, so if you're real, then do this, or show me this. You know, astaghfirullah, at the time I had no idea, you know, I was just like, please give me a sign, please do something. And he just kept on giving them. And until I got to a point where I was like, no, this can't be. I remember I was in Homebase, you know, the DIY store. And I mean, how often do we go in DIY stores or like supermarkets, for example, and hear an Arabic song playing? Wallahi, I turned around to my now ex-husband. I was like, that's Arabic. Didn't he just say Allah? I was like, can you hear? I thought I was going mad. I was like, can you hear that? He's like, yeah, that's Arabic. I was like, when do they play an Arabic song in Homebase? Like, how is that even a thing? Oh, and it just got, the signs came thick and fast. Wow. Literally, Allah could have just been there. And it was so intense, the things that started to happen. Yeah, and then I had a dream about being in a masjid. And that was the final straw for me, if you like. I had a dream that I was in a masjid. I was walking down a street, and then I went into this masjid, and I saw loads of people dressed in white, like bowed down. Obviously in the dream I didn't really know. I knew that that Muslims prayed, but I didn't really know what it was all about. And so I had that dream, and then I was like, I woke up from that, and it was so real. It was so real. I just, there was no way it could have been anything other than Allah telling me, right, this is what you need to do now. So that's what I did. I went online and I found a masjid that where I could basically take my shahada. I didn't know it was my shahada at the time, but where I could take my shahada and learn more about Islam.
Wow. MashaAllah. That is absolutely amazing. I can't believe you did that kind of testing Allah. I know a lot of converts that go through that phase. Yeah. Where they're like, show yourself to me, or like, do this thing. Yeah. But mashallah, Allah guided you.
He did guide me. And I did indeed go to the masjid. And when I got in there, it was like the dream. Wow. The street and everything. When I got in them, I was like, I've been here before. I had, in my dream, I had been there before. And that was it. The rest is history, as they say. I took my shahada and alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, oh my God. That's so amazing. Oh, I got goosebumps. So your story is very rosy and uplifting. Did you have any struggles when you became Muslim?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really crucial because people don't realise just how difficult it can be, not for all reverts, but can be for reverts. And you know, for the first year I was shining with Noor, everyone was so kind to me, everything was like happy and roses. And then things start to decline slightly. So you maybe don't get invited to so much stuff. Maybe you just don't feel as positive as you did. And you see these, well, for me, I'm not making a general assumption, but for me, you know, I started to lose friends. I started to kind of get distant from family. And then when you start covering, that's a whole new kettle of fish, because people are, you know, not used to seeing you in such attire, and like maybe your mannerisms change, and people are just not used to you maybe not swearing as much or not going out as much or as not dressing in a certain way. So I had all these really big challenges, and you know, it was very, very difficult for me to, I was thinking almost, I wasn't pining for the life I had before because Islam really improved my life, but I was like, is this really what I want to do? And I kind of went through a dip where I just didn't really practice properly. I wasn't praying my salah, I wasn't reading Quran. And then I kind of slowly started to go back to just doing whatever I wanted, because as soon as you let go of your salah, as you know, that's it. You let go of your salah and reading Quran, it's a slippery slope. And a lot of reverts that I know and talk to, they you know, they go through it, and then you come back up and you're back on the deen and you're feeling really positive and want to go everywhere and do everything. But I had a first marriage to my non-believing husband, and then I had a marriage to my first Muslim husband, and you know, it didn't work out. It wasn't good for me, and I had to learn a lot from that. But that really affected my Islam. Really affected my Islam. I nearly left. I nearly left. Astaghfirullah, I could just cry. I'm not going to. I'm going to save the tears, but I nearly left the deen. I was right at the edge of saying, I'm not Muslim anymore. Astaghfirullah. It was really tough.
Yeah.
Really tough.
It's easy in those moments when, especially when you become a Muslim and you see Islam as this amazing, like perfect religion.
Yeah.
And then you're met with these
People
that can sometimes be unperfect and very damaged.
Yeah.
And it's hard to accept that as a new Muslim.
Yes, because you just want to believe the best in everyone, and you hope that everyone's practicing the same level as Islam as you. And when you find out they're not, it's like, oh, I feel tricked. But I know now. So after that marriage with him, I really struggled to say, I want to be a Muslim. I just let it all go. I stopped talking to my Muslim friends. I just had nothing to do with Islam whatsoever. And after about 7 months, I started to feel the emptiness, which is when Allah is missing. And I would just go to bed every night and feel like I wanted to die, if you want the truth. I'd just be like, I don't want to even be alive anymore. So for me to get to that point, I've already been through a lot in my life. I knew that this was serious. You know, I just didn't want to be alive, and I didn't want to see anyone, and I didn't want to talk to anyone. And so I hadn't spoken to Allah in 7 months. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't even looked at an Islamic book. And, you know, I just laid in bed that one night and said, you know, I'm really sorry, Allah. Just help me to come back to the deen. Just do what you need to do to get me back, because I can't live like this. Sorry, I'm really emotional.
It's okay. I'm emotional as well. What was that like for you? Like going back to being non-Muslim? Horrible. Because, you know, there's no conversation about Allah. There's no going to the masjid. There's no hearing the beautiful Quran. There's no Arabic. There's no nothing. And you can never fill the void. I tried going out with my friends. You know, I've never been like a party animal or anything like that. I just don't do those things. I'm a bit old for that now anyway. But you can't fill the void. I'd go out with my friends. I'd even be in beautiful places and everything was grey. Like you'd go to like a beautiful place where there's a beautiful beach and it would be grey because your remembrance of Allah is gone. And Allah just doesn't like that at all. And he will push you right to the edge until you do come back to him
until you say, I'm really sorry. And this is the beauty of Islam. We're not pushed out for this. We're not made to feel like we're worthless. We're welcomed back all the time by Allah, because he loves us and he's guided me. And I just think right now, you know, the amount of times that I've thought to myself, I don't feel good about Islam, I'm really struggling with it. But essentially this very last time, which I hope inshallah will be the last time, I was so far from him and from Islam. It was so grim and so dark that I think Allah tested me with this so severely that I would never leave again. I would never leave again, inshallah. Knowing what I know now.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, you came back. Alhamdulillah, you found Islam in the first place.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Just know that you're loved a lot by Allah, which is the best love you can ever get, for bringing you back twice.
Absolutely. And this time, so I made the dua and instantly he was there. That's how you know his back's never turned for the people he chooses as well. It was crazy, because that very next day I made the dua, very sincere, heartfelt, crying dua, head on the floor. A friend of mine that I hadn't spoken to in a long time, she messaged me and said, do you want to meet for a coffee? And she's a very practicing Muslim, and she's someone that I really look up to in regards to her, you know, level of understanding Arabic and you know, the Saira and things like that. And wow, we just met and that was it. I started to get back. She said, let's start again with your salah. Let's actually start like you were a baby with your salah. Let's get it really perfected. And why don't you come to this class with me? And then that's how it, Allah sent her, and that was it. And then, alhamdulillah, I've been steadfast and on my prayers and doing what I'm doing. And, you know, I enjoy working with reverts, and, you know, I keep this as essential part of my life, is learning Islam. No.
It shows you the power of reaching out to people that are supposedly lost.
Yeah. And that's why I'm really, really, you know, if you see a sister that's going down the wrong path, or she's not doing well, or she's struggling, give a bit of time, but reach out to her. Because look, if she hadn't have reached out to me, I mean, we know it was by Allah, it's qadar of Allah, but where would I have been now? I saw her and I was just like, okay, I need to come back to my family, my home.
I think that's worth like pondering on. If you know anyone in your life that is quite lost, then maybe it's time to reach out to them. Maybe you're going to be that guide for them, inshallah. I'll make dua for you guys.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, we need to make dua for the people that are really struggling, because it is hard for reverts. You know, there's no doubt about it. It's not supposed to be easy.
Even born Muslims, a lot of people are leaving their religion.
Absolutely, and then they come back, and it's a river, isn't it? Islam, it's all over the place. But then I've come back so much stronger now. I've got loads more knowledge. I know my rights as a you know, in marriage, and I've read loads, and I really got on it. And I thought, next time I want to be armed with the information, so that no one can ever try and take me off. Because the thing is, if you don't have enough knowledge, it's easy to be swayed. So that is why I always say to reverts, essentially, learn your deen, learn your knowledge, then look for a good pious husband, you know, and think about those things.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh, honestly, sister, thank you for coming on. And I'll put all your links to your everything, like your Instagram. So make sure you guys follow her, check out her content, inshallah. Thank you guys for watching. Assalamu alaikum.